Hello YouTube, my name is Paul. Hope you're all keeping well. Welcome back to a different type of video. A bit of a comparison video. But a bit different this one. So I want to look at sort of a David versus Goliath scenario. The Sinclair ZX Spectrum up against the Commodore Amiga. Two of my favourite all-time micros. All sprinkling some of the other micros like the Amstrad C64 and ST. Just to give you some kind of context as to where they all sit. Show you some footage as per usual. Well, I'll have a look at the games and see where the differences are. And why I think the Spectrum version is more superior to the Commodore Amiga version. So you'll all get your own say. I'll do a little poll for every one of these videos that I put up so you guys can rate your favourite version of the arcade game. So yeah, I thought I'd do something a bit different just to shake things up a little bit. It's something I've been meaning to do for a long time, just never really got around to it. And today's choice is Operation Wolf, which I had on the Spectrum, never had it on the Amiga, didn't play it until quite a number of years later. But I always remember seeing the lovely screenshots in the magazines for the 16-bit home computer versions. And man, was I jealous. So where do we begin? How do we compare the Spectrum against the Amiga? Bearing in mind the different price points now, $24.95 for the Amiga, $8.95 for the Sinclair Spectrum. But graphically, I suppose graphically is where we start. It's those images that drew us in, wasn't it, from the magazines or the back of the box. And the Amiga version looked just like the arcade. The Spectrum version, don't get me wrong, looked amazing for a Sinclair Spectrum, but yeah, the Amiga version had all the elements from the arcade as well, didn't it? Had all the different animals, the foreground objects like the rubble, the crates, the helicopters, the tanks, the lorries. Had a lot more variety than what the Spectrum had. Even the cutscenes were all there, weren't they? They looked really good, to be fair. There wasn't much to tell the difference between the arcade and the Amiga. Probably for, I don't know, some of the colours maybe. But yeah, the Amiga done a cracking job. In the stills anyway, it looked great. On the Spectrum version, I remember playing a playable demo of that and being blown away by how it looked. Very well detailed on the sprites, especially the ones that are closer to us in the foreground. The background graphics were great. Shame it was monochrome, but I can see why they would have done that. It would have been a bloody mess if it was in colour. But yeah, it was never going to compete with the Amiga. But again, it had the intro sequence where you had the guy kitting out with his knife, and his grenade, and his gun. That was quite cool. But yeah, ain't going to touch the Amiga, is it? Then sound-wise, if you stood outside that door listening in, you'd have thought you'd listen to the arcade version on the Amiga, wouldn't you? Squealing pigs, clucking chickens, men screaming, bullets, tanks trundling along the ground, lorries, or trucks, helicopters, all the rest of it. It sounded absolutely fantastic. It was a Spectrum version, had quite minimalistic sound, didn't it? Effective, but yeah, quite minimal. But the AY chip rendition of the arcade tune at the beginning, though, for me was brilliant. Probably one of the most nostalgic AY chip tunes of all time for me. Whereas the Amiga version, again, the music was good, it's effective. Probably sounded more like the arcade than the Spectrum version did, to be fair. But yeah, Spectrum, again, wasn't going to compete. Memory restrictions and all the rest of it. Capability of not having the same sound chip as the Amiga. But again, so far the Amiga's quite far ahead until you start to play the game. I found the Amiga version, I'm not sure what was wrong with it. I think for me it was more the animation. The characters didn't have a lot of animation on them. Not only that, when you shot them, I'm not saying the Spectrum version did have a lot of animation in it, but when you shot the baddies on the Amiga version, sometimes they die with one shot, sometimes they needed multiple shots. Always got the feeling as well the Amiga version was slow at times, quite sluggish to play. Which made it quite a frustrating game. Lots and lots going on as well, lots of objects dropping from the sky, aid and ammunition and stuff like that, which kind of helped in a way, because I found the Amiga version quite difficult, so it kind of helped a little bit with it. I could never get off level 2. So you're playing away, wasting bullets on things you can't kill, looking at animation that was a little bit choppy at times. Yeah, you got to end the level 2, didn't you? You got to that baddie. Oh my god. By the time you get there with that 2 or 3 bits of health, you're dead. You shoot the woman once, a hostage once, and you're dead. So it's almost like, wow. So I found it difficult on the Amiga. I found it quite sluggish on the Amiga, especially when you're trying to kill things. Disk swapping, initially you benefit from the loading times on the Amiga, but ultimately you do have to swap the discs in between dying, restarting, all the rest of it. So that was a bit of a downer. But yeah, on the Speccy on the other hand, you have smoother scrolling. You shot a bad guy once it died. You didn't need to waste a load of ammunition on it. And I found the game generally more fluid on the Spectrum. Yeah, a bit of slowdown every now and then. But usually on the Spectrum version, you found a lot more was going on. Because I think some of the levels had more baddies on it than the Amiga version did. I mean, one of the levels has got like 95 men, dozen helicopters, and about 12 tanks, which is a dozen tanks. But yeah, I just felt the Spectrum version just felt a lot smoother, a lot more of an enjoyable experience, as the Amiga version was, like I said, sluggish, bloody hard and frustrating. But yeah, so that's why for me the Spectrum version is better. It didn't look and sound better, but it played better. So yeah, I'd like to know your own thoughts on that, because at the end of the day you might love the Amiga version. You might totally disagree with what I'm saying here. But when you throw some of the other systems in the mix though, the Amstrad we'll talk about first. Again, it plays just like the Speccy version. It's just quicker, but because it's quicker, you notice a slowdown more when lots are going on. And obviously with the Amstrad, you usually get that smaller sort of screen, don't you, where the borders are a lot bigger. So the Amstrad version, I wouldn't say looks better than the Speccy version. I think it's compensated by the fact it's in colour. There's a great use of colours on the Amstrad as well. The sound effects are identical to the Speccy. One benefit you do get on the Amstrad is you get a lovely map in between each level, where it just goes through the 6 stages. The Speccy didn't have that. But for me, the Amstrad is slightly below the Speccy in terms of playability, because it is that bit faster. It's quite easier to miss any ammunition. It's quite essential in that game you pick up ammunition, as you know. But it's probably marginally more difficult than the Spectrum version. It's not far off it. They're quite close. They're developed by the same people, Ivan Horn and Andrew Deakin. So yeah, a cracking conversion on both systems. The C64 on the other hand, again, looks washed out. It's okay. You know exactly what you're playing when you look at the graphics, but it was hampered by this weird, strange mechanic called a joystick. I'm not sure if it was an issue with the emulation, I don't know. But for me, it was the worst version of the game to play. Some people may play it and play it with the light gun and think it's the best version to play. It'd be interesting again to know your thoughts. But my initial impression, because of that control method, and the fact the joystick, literally the cursor zoomed across the screen the longer you held the joystick down for, made the game unplayable in my opinion. And you're talking about the ST version. Now the ST version, again, looks like the Amiga version, slightly less colours. The sound is certainly weaker on the ST. The game is slower on the ST. In fact, you've got to swap discs multiple times more than the ST. It's bloody infuriating. So I believe the ST version on 3 discs, Amiga's on 2. So yeah, I found the ST version frustrating. I've got to say, it was slower and more sluggish, which made it that bit harder to play really. But yeah, in order of sequence, what I'll do is I'll show you some footage first, before I put them in sequence of best to worst. You'll see 10 seconds of each machine. Keeping in mind, I've kept the borders on the emulation as well, so when you see the actual play areas, you will see the difference between the Spectrum and the Amstrad, the Atari ST and the Amiga. So 50 seconds of just footage. Then what I'll do at the end is have some side-by-side footage, which is quite traditional for these kinds of videos, to see them all running the same level at the same time. But yeah, not really much more I can add to it really. Hope you guys enjoyed the video anyway. But I'll leave those last bits at the end so you can make up your minds as to which versions you prefer. So thank you very much for watching the video. Thank you very much for subscribing. I'll see you guys again real soon. Take care and bye for now.
have sustained a lethal injury. Sorry, but you are finished here.